Good morning, and welcome to the annual City of Birmingham Memorial Service. My name is Bruce Miller. I'm chairman of the Birmingham Memorial Day Committee and a member of the Oakland County Camp of the Sons of the Civil War. Our fraternal organization exists to preserve and perpetuate the Grand Army of the Republic and its sacrifice in serving and saving the Union, and to ensure the proper observance of Memorial Day. Now, please turn your attention to the flag of the United States and to the colors. Whenever our gaze alights upon the stars and stripes flying proudly in the breeze, we should never fail to recall with solemn pride how many of our countrymen have made the ultimate sacrifice for the flag and their fellow citizens. Since the War of Independence, it's estimated that 1,065,000 Americans have died in wartime service to the United States. Over 40,000 remain missing in action to this day. Now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now, Maestro, if you would, the Star-Spangled Banner. I don't have to tell you folks that Memorial Day is not just about cookouts and mattress sales. To remind us of that, I want you to meet my friend, Bob Marcus. Bob is a retired United States Army Chief Warrant Officer. He's been an enlisted man, non-commissioned officer, and officer. He's had the privilege of serving for 34 years in the United States Army and Reserve components. His assignments include long-range surveillance, military intelligence, psychological warfare, cavalry and infantry units to include the 82nd Airborne and the 1st Special Forces Group. His final assignment was as the Dean of Strategic Languages in Europe and Africa. He's been awarded numerous commendations to include the Bronze Star and the Combat Action Badge. He's been deployed multiple times for our great nation, and I've asked him to share a particular experience that is appropriate to this solemn day of remembrance.
Good morning. Hopefully this stays and you can hear me well. To my fellow veterans, family members, mayor, everyone that's attended today, thank you very much for being here. Memorial Day should remind us of the greatness of the past, generations of Americans who achieved and reflect on the sacrifices that they made so that we can be the great country and people that we are today. It is our duty to honor the memory of the fallen, be learning from their lives not only today, but every day and every year. They should never be relegated to a statistic about a certain battle or a certain war and conflict. We should never let their memory be one day. But we should remember them as individuals who gave up their days so that we may live ours. We observe Memorial Day because of these lives that were lost. We observe because of these sacrifices and the costs that were paid for all of us. Bruce asked me to share a story from my past, and it was basically during my period of time as a part of a U.S. Army regional honor and burial detail during my time as a non-commissioned officer. I was a sergeant first class before I became a warrant officer, and I was assigned to this particular task during our global war on terrorism. My team was called upon to conduct one such honor in Columbus, Ohio. The significance of this event is that the fact that during a period of time in my service, I had had a break in service from active duty, and I was a reservist. I retained that military involvement by joining a unit that was the 346th Psychological Operations Company, an airborne unit still on active jump status even as a reservist, and was given a platoon as their platoon sergeant. It was there that I met a young man fresh from basic training and basic airborne course. His name was Adam Knox. Adam was born on the 26th of January, 1985. Adam was, quite frankly, a good-looking kid, small in stature, but highly athletic. He wanted to literally box every single one of us in the company just to beat us. That was his way. He excelled both in and out of uniform. He was the youngest in his family. With that said, the thing I remember most about Adam is the fact that he was always smiling, every time. If we were on a forced 12-mile ruck march under 80 pounds, he was still laughing and smiling. After 2 years, I returned to active duty. And during this period of time is when I was assigned to the Honor and Burial Guard detail out of Fort Knox. Fast forward to 2006, I had been assigned to the new duty station, new responsibilities. And during this time in September, we received a warning order to prepare to move to Ohio. A soldier had been killed in action and was to be honored by his hometown. A familiar name jumped out from the op order. That name was Sergeant Adam Knox. Sergeant Knox was killed instantly in Baghdad while on patrol and encountered enemy small arms fire on the 17th of September, 2006. He had only been a sergeant for 2 days and was scheduled to return home for his 2 weeks of R&R 1 week later. With pristine uniforms and associated equipment, the 12-man team that I was in charge of was deployed by a van from Fort Knox to receive Adam at the Port Columbus International Airport, now the John Glenn International Airport. In heavy rainfall and approximately 11 p.m., the Delta Airlines flight, which brought Adam home, the Angel flight, taxied to the hangar where our honor guard was stationed. Air traffic control had paused as all air traffic during the period of time that Adam's plane taxied to the hangar. Despite the inclement weather, Adam's family and many friends, as well as local dignitaries, both political and civic, were on hand, among whom were a number of active and reserve units, Columbus Police, Columbus Fire Honor Guards, as well as a number of military service organizations. Military honors were presented as we moved Adam into the waiting hearse, and the local media had broadcast Adam's sacrifices a few days prior, and details were made public. So as we moved through the procession through the town to the funeral home, the streets were lined with flags. As it rained, individuals stood in silent honor along our entire route. The significance of Sergeant Knox's sacrifice was summed up with the attendance of General Brian D. Brown. At the time, he was the commanding of the United States Special Operations Command, SOCOM. Over the next 2 days, we represented the people of the United States, the military services, and Sergeant Knox's unit. We conducted silent around-the-clock vigils, acted as military pallbearers, escorted family members during various services, as well as escorting several military and civic dignitaries who were there to attend Sergeant Knox's service. Concurrently, a small element of the team under my command represented the armed forces at a pre-game minute of silence at the horseshoe during the Ohio State-Penn State game, where Adam was a student at Ohio State. The team also escorted the game-winning ball back to the chapel where Adam rested. Coach Jim Tressel, the head coach of the Ohio State University team at that time, had dedicated the game-winning ball in Sergeant Knox's honor. One of the most striking of all the events that is done as a member of the honor detail and those who witness military burial services is the last call. I always believe that the stirs of the deepest emotions to all who witness the impact of the last call are not only impactful but long-lasting. The last call is the last call is a tradition that pays the honor to the deceased soldier. The last call is part of all unit memorial ceremonies, and when the family members of the deceased soldier are present, they are brought into the honor guard, or escorted by the honor guard, and the purpose for briefing the family so that they will understand its traditions and meanings, not to be surprised during the ceremony. The senior leader, normally the first sergeant of the unit or the senior enlisted soldier, is designated to conduct the last call. 3 soldiers are generally chosen from the unit who will be present at the ceremony to participate in the last call, and these soldiers will sit throughout the chapel, and they are not seated together. The leader will stand at the rear of the chapel, and upon completion of the benediction, the senior leader will proceed with the last call. The honor detail second in command opens the right rear chapel doors. For Sergeant Knox's last call, the following happened. I called off as the senior designated leader, Sergeant Smith. Sergeant Smith replies, "Here, Sergeant." Specialist Jones. Jones replies, "Here, Sergeant." Private First Class Lee. "Here, Sergeant." Sergeant Knox. Sergeant Knox. Sergeant Adam Lon Knox. After a pause, the firing party sergeant received the signal to fire, and giving the firing commands to fire 3 volleys representing that their weapons will no longer do harm. The bugler then began to play taps, and there was silence. The honor detail's final task is to escort the soldier's remains to his final resting place, rendering military honors and rights. The flag is taken from the casket. A folding ceremony is conducted and given to the chaplain. The chaplain then knelt in front of Sergeant Knox's mother, as so many others have experienced over the years, presenting the flag and saying the following: As a representative of the United States Army, it is my high privilege to present to you this flag. Let it be a symbol of the appreciation this nation feels for the distinguished service rendered to our country and to our flag by your loved ones. The brave Americans who sacrificed their lives for our great nation are the real heroes who made real contributions and paid real cost for their courageous actions and sacrifices. These are the heroes who tower above anything produced by Hollywood. Heroes who should be inspiring us more than anything we've ever read in a movie or read in a book. I am truly humbled and honored to count myself privileged to have served with and known a man such as Sergeant Knox, and to this day I think of him often. I still wear the memorial bracelet on my wrist with his name engraved on it to this day. But I consider myself more privileged and honored to have had a small part in bringing him home. To add him into those who sacrifice on our behalf, it should be an obligation that we as Americans have to celebrate all of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice this and every Memorial Day. Memorial Day should not be just about a day off from work, a picnic, or an opportunity to get out on a boat. My hope is that you will remember our fallen comrades, and even more so their families, far beyond today, far beyond this ceremony. They should be remembered every day. Then, in our hearts and in our minds, they will continue to be with and a part of us and shall never fade away. My personal dedication this day is to Sergeant Knox, a fellow soldier, and more importantly, a friend. Thank you.
We do often take for granted the very things that most deserve our gratitude. The nation will remain the land of the free so long as it is the home of the brave. While on Memorial Day we honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country, we want to take this time to honor all those with us today who have worn the uniform of the United States. So let's have all veterans and first responders come forward at this time and form to my left, going my left to your right. Yeah.
Military left.
Military left. There you go. Thanks. Okay. All right, vets, come on forward.
He's got the mile. You gotta use that one. Don't give him no trip and falls.
That's
now.
right.
Get you up here too.
No, I'm done. I'm good. I said, you all know they already explained me.
Now, when I pass, would I ask you please to state your name and your branch of service? And we'll see if I can make it all the way without a wireless mic. So bear with us. First,
Bob DeLora, Army Infantry, Vietnam.
Ryan Howell, Army Artillery.
Ralph Bond, Army.
Jack House, Marine Corps, Air Force, Air National Guard.
Greg Schultz, Army, Iraq, Guantanamo Bay.
Tom Legault, Navy.
Will Isaacson, Birmingham Police Department.
Megan May, Birmingham Police Department.
Dave Talaga, Lyon Township Fire Department.
Joe Schoenberg, Army.
Richard Shapak, Navy Submarines.
Tim McGee, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam.
Jim Smallwood, Marine Corps, Vietnam. Tony Perettino, Korea.
Tom December, U.S. Army.
Ted Moss, United States Navy, Vietnam. Chris James, Navy Seabees, Vietnam.
George Stern, Army. John Lilly, Navy, submarines.
Jack Burns, U.S. Army.
Kirby Callum, Navy.
Joe King, Air Force, Vietnam.
Mike Steingold, Field Flicking, Germany, 3rd Division.
Joe Laverty, Army, Ordnance Corps, Vietnam. Ron Thompson, Fire Department, Auburn Hills.
Dave Zimmer, U.S. Navy.
Mike Rake, U.S. Army. Richard Hirneisen, U.S. Navy.
Andrea Anderson, U.S. Navy.
Tom Shipley, World War II, Navy, aircraft.
Ron Vandermolen, U.S. Army, Vietnam, Big Red Ball. Mike Schwartz, U.S. Army.
And I see one more gentleman resting over there, a World War II veteran, and his name is Bob Kinney. Now, gentlemen, to salute your service, the medley of service songs. Ladies and gentlemen, you may fall out. Thank you for your service. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the mayor of the city of Birmingham, Therese Long.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Good morning, and thank you all for joining us today for this Memorial Day service. I am Birmingham Mayor Therese Long, and I'm joined this morning by Mayor Pro Tem Elaine McLean, Commissioner Clinton Baller, Commissioner Andrew Haig, and Commissioner Brad Host. And we are all honored to have you with us this morning. Each year, this moving tribute is organized by the Birmingham Memorial Day Committee, chaired by Bruce Miller, who, along with the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War Camp 2, Oakland County, the North-South Skirmish Association, honored speakers, and the Birmingham Concert Band, help us to reflect and remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country. The city thanks you all for this event. We gather today to celebrate and honor the men and women who died so that we may be free. All throughout this country today, people attend ceremonies such as this one, hold family gatherings, or visit a cemetery to decorate a loved one's gravesite. We reflect upon our freedoms and our blessings as we honor our nation's heroes. Each of the men and women who lived for our country and died for our country were cherished, and their memories and stories live on in someone's heart. And so our gratitude and appreciation are with these soldiers and their families, not just today, but every day. 2 war monuments here in Cheyne Park remind us of our debt to these men and women. Our Civil War monument was erected in 1869 as a memorial to the soldiers from 4 townships, including the village of Birmingham, and each face of the monument lists the young men who died from each township. Our World War II monument was designed by Birmingham's own famous sculptor Marshall Fredrickson, was presented by the Birmingham Rotary Club to Seaholm High School in 1952 to express to the new generation the heritage of military service and the reminder of services rendered by previous generations. In his original dedication speech, Colonel Edward Hellier referred to the memorial as the Peace Memorial and said it was dedicated not only to our local military heroes, but to civilians as well who assisted their nation in trying to secure peace throughout the world. As we honor the memories of our fallen heroes this morning, we are grateful for the future they made possible for us. We honor those who died for democracy by working to keep it alive. President Ronald Reagan said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction." We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with well-thought lessons of how they in their lifetimes must continue to do the same. To the mothers, fathers, siblings, and children who grieved for their loved ones, who selflessly enlisted and fought so hard that others may live free, we see you and we honor you. Our hearts ache for your loss, and our words cannot express our gratitude and respect for you and your loved ones' sacrifice. So on this Memorial Day, we honor the men and women who gave their lives in the service of freedom. They fought, protected, and defended our nation. These brave men and women deserve our ongoing deepest gratitude. Thank you all for coming to remember and honor them here today.
God Bless America is an American patriotic song written by Irving Berlin during World War I in 1918 and revised by him in the run-up to World War II in 1938. The latter version was notably recorded by Kate Smith, becoming her signature song. Joining the Birmingham Concert Band entertainers today, led by Rob Olson, is soloist Colonel Ryan Howell, United States Army, who, by the way, looks nothing like Kate Smith. Rob, take it away.
to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
And now, if everyone would join in singing one more verse of God Bless America. I think you know the words.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Colonel. Our next speaker is Dr. George Getchman, dentist, musician, and arguably Birmingham's leading historian. George is an authority on Birmingham's Greenwood Cemetery that contains over 3,000 graves, including Revolutionary War veterans. Thanks to George's efforts, Greenwood Cemetery has been designated a National Historical Site by the National Park Service. I'm sure he will tell you more about that story when he leads the cemetery tour after this service. Please welcome, direct from the band, sans trombone, our pal, George Getchman.
Thank you, Bruce. Memorial Day, 125 years ago, was an all-day event. At 2 p.m., a good portion of its nearly 1,000 residents gathered outside the Methodist Church on Maple and Henrietta for the parade to Greenwood Cemetery, where the ceremonies traditionally took place. Shane Park here did not exist then. The day was sunny and warm, and the procession was led by one-armed Civil War veteran, Captain John Allen Bigelow. He was followed by the high school boys cadet group and then 16 girls representing various organizations. The Civil War veterans followed them, then the townspeople. They processed up Old Woodward, past the coal-powered electric generating plant where Booth Park is now located, just past the north edge of town, and on to the cemetery. The event was attended by hundreds of people filled with patriotic sentiments, for in the spring of 1898, the United States was at war. Birmingham in 1898 was just a little farming village. Residents in town were encouraged to keep their chickens from roaming into their neighbors' flower gardens and to keep their horses from nibbling bark off of maple trees. Cows and pigs occasionally wandered into the cemetery, and cattle drives down Old Woodward did not attract much public notice, except for one time when a mad bull went wild and just missed impaling a 5-year-old boy sitting on the steps of the National Hotel, located where the Comerica Bank is now located on North Old Woodward. Many Birmingham residents were participants in the great bicycle craze of the 1890s. New or used bicycles could be purchased at Whitehead and Mitchell's dry goods store, what is now the Paper Source store up here at Maple and Pierce, for $25 to $50, quite a price when the average annual income was $600. On weekends, the dirt streets were filled with men and women wearing strange apparel, traversing from places as far away as Detroit, or those from closer by like Pontiac, Royal Oak, Franklin, or Big Beaver. There was a ladies' bicycle club in town, and one resident observed, while men rode with their bikes with pinched and painful expressions, women tended to ride upright with joyful faces. There was a running controversy over bicyclists' use of the wood plank sidewalks. Someone noted that the many horses in the streets took more care to avoid pedestrians than the bicyclists did, while others claimed that there was more danger on the sidewalks from staggering drunks on Saturday night than the bicycles. And anyway, who could blame the bicyclists from wanting to avoid the mud and horse manure in the streets? The Ladies' Literary Society met weekly, Recitals were given in homes of Birmingham's more talented residents, and Birmingham's churches sponsored lectures and musical events. Birmingham's band had evening concerts in front of Library Hall at Old Woodward and Maple, where Lululemon is now located. In 1898, the only thing in Birmingham that was electrified was the new street railroad that ran from Pontiac to Detroit. Some homes and businesses had gas lighting with gas produced at the acetylene gas plant located on Willets. It would be 10 more years until electricity was available for homes in the village. Telephone service was becoming more widespread, and the hub of this amazing technology in Birmingham was in Whitehead and Mitchell's store, where there was a switchboard and a phone booth, and where with help, residents could make a long-distance call. Birmingham people were very aware of unrest that had been ongoing in Cuba since the end of the American Civil War. Native Cubans were chafing under the authoritarian-minded Spanish rulers, and uprisings were becoming more frequent there. Many Americans longed to remove Spanish influence from the region, especially as American financial interests in Cuba rose. Sympathy for native Cubans was strong. On February 18, 1898, Birmingham residents read about the explosion and sinking of the USS Maine in Havana Harbor 2 days earlier. The Maine had been sent to see to the safety of Americans living in Cuba, and there was an immediate call for war across the country. Spain denied responsibility for the explosion, and President McKinley called for restraint until a board of inquiry could determine the cause. At the end of March, the board found no evidence that Spain was responsible for the sinking of the Maine, but war fever in the United States had reached the point of no return, and Congress declared war on April 19, 1898. Here in Birmingham, like much of the rest of the country, people had been stirred up with patriotic fervor since the sinking of the Maine. On Friday, May 6th, a large crowd formed on Maple in front of Civil War veteran Captain David Doty's monument works, and spontaneous speeches were given and flags were waved. Doty announced that he would form a squadron of volunteers and begin training and drilling. 28 men signed up on the spot. The list was posted at Park's Meat Market in the building now occupied by Crate and Barrel at Old Woodward and Maple. And within a week, 45 men had joined, including a number of aged Civil War veterans. On Saturday, May 7th, a rally was held in Library Hall. The building was packed, and speeches were given celebrating the news of Admiral Dewey's victory over the Spanish fleet in Manila Bay. The crowd sang "Rally Around the Flag," and the collection was taken up for fireworks. And as the norm in those days for public events, a minister was on hand to give a benediction to conclude the rally. Another Civil War veteran, Thomas Ward, agreed to lead a group of young men from Hill School, located where Baldwin House now stands, to form a drill company. The boys had to be at least 5 feet tall to participate. They drilled every Wednesday evening, and members included Judson Bradway, who one day would become a local real estate developer known for the conversion of the Hutt Farm into Bloomfield Village, and Charles Raynell, who would become the third-generation Birmingham doctor and would one day be in the Army Medical Corps in World War I. Not to be outdone, the girls in the high school formed their own drill corps, led by Captain Bigelow. The state of Michigan organized 5 volunteer regiments of 1,000 men each. The recruits were sent to a training camp at Island Lake near Brighton. Birmingham was proud to have several young men volunteer. And this is usually the point in these Memorial Day speeches where we usually focus on some of our war heroes. But in this war, the Birmingham men fought more mosquitoes than Spaniards. Nobody from Birmingham charged up San Juan Hill with Teddy Roosevelt. 20-year-old Alanson Brush joined the Michigan 31st Regiment in May, and his experience was typical of many of the Michigan soldiers. Alanson had grown up on a farm just south of town, and he was a bright, self-taught mechanic, already deriving income from several patents. His regiment was sent to an Army camp in Chickamauga, Georgia, but were moved to Knoxville, Tennessee after a break of typhoid. Here they drilled and watched the regimental baseball and football teams play. Alanson paid for 10 copies of the Detroit Free Press to be sent to the regiment every day. In January of 1899, 5 months after the fighting stopped, his regiment was sent to Cuba for guard duty, and then 3 months later, the regiment returned to the United States and was disbanded. Allenson returned to the Detroit area and in 1901 was hired by Henry Leland and John Falconer to make changes to 1,000 automobile engines that their company had manufactured, but subsequently were rejected by Ransom Olds for his automobile company. Brush's changes to these engines led to the formation of the Cadillac Automobile Company, and Brush became locally famous in October of 1902 when he demonstrated the capabilities of the Cadillac by driving it up and down the steps of the Wayne County Courthouse in downtown Detroit. Brush went on to start his own company a few years later and ultimately had a successful career as a consulting engineer. Michigan sent almost 7,000 men into the military for the war, and 250 men died, and all but 2 of these died of disease. Nationally, 375,000 men served in this 10-week war, and 5,600 died during their service. Of these, only 460 deaths were attributed to combat. In the war's aftermath, the United States government went to great lengths to identify and return the remains of the dead soldiers to U.S. soil. President McKinley did not want a repeat of the Civil War, in which nearly half of the remains of the dead went unidentified. D.H. Rhodes, the U.S. Inspector of National Cemeteries, headed a task force to Cuba in August of 1898 to locate and identify remains. Over the next 13 years, ceremonies were held at Arlington National Cemetery as servicemen were interned there, including sailors from the Maine. The area at Arlington is easily identified by the salvaged mast of the Maine, which now stands over the site. The Secretary of War during the McKinley administration was John Hay, who in his early career had served as Abraham Lincoln's secretary. He called the Spanish-American War a splendid little war. While the United States gained its objectives of ridding the Caribbean of European powers and expanded its influence throughout the world, the families of the 5,600 men who died, I am sure, had no consolation knowing that their sons and husbands died in a war that was thought to be splendid and little. And our remembrance of them should be just as sincere as those who died more heroically in the grand wars. The tour this morning at the Greenwood Cemetery will be approximately 11:30, and anybody who is interested will be meeting at the West Gate. So we'll see you there if you're interested. Thank you.
Thanks, George.
And now, if you're ready, the Stars and Stripes Forever.
Wait for a trombone player.
brave piccolo player is Katie Howell, who just happens to be the wife of Colonel Howell. And I'm not sure which one of you two forced the other one into performing today, but we thank you both for being with us. And now, our annual necrology of 2022 to 2023. Here's Lieutenant Colonel Joe Diani. Joe?
Thank you. Joe doing it again. Thank you, First Sergeant Miller. At this point in our service, we customarily read the necrology, that being the listing of Michiganians in the service who have passed away since Memorial Day of last year. We always hope that there will be no names on the list, and fortunately, we have no Michigan fatalities to report since Memorial Day last year. However, that does not mean that men, women serving at home and abroad have not made the ultimate sacrifice for our country and we the people. We remember these brave soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and first responders who perished in defense of our freedom. Thank you.
Here in Cheyne Park, we have two monuments, as the mayor said, one from the Civil War and one honoring all who have served. First, the Civil War monument. The residents of Bloomfield, Royal Oak, Southfield, and Troy townships raised money to build the monument, completed and dedicated in 1869, and placed in the center of the intersection of Mill and Saginaw, now Maple and Old Woodward. It was surrounded by a low wrought iron fence with flowers carefully planted around the base. On each side of the obelisk are inscribed the names of the soldiers from each of the 4 townships who did not survive the war. In 1891, the monument was considered to be an impediment to traffic at the intersection, and it was moved to Greenwood Cemetery. There it became the focal point of Civil War soldiers' reunions and Memorial Day observances, when the custom was to have a parade that terminated at the cemetery with a service held around the monument. In 1964, to coincide with the 100th anniversary of the incorporation of Birmingham as a city, the monument was moved again to the lawn of the municipal building, and in 2010, when Cheyne Park was redesigned, the monument was moved to its current location. The Oakland County Camp of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War will now place their memorial wreath. On November 11, 1952, the Birmingham High School Band opened the ceremony to dedicate the new Rotary Club War Memorial with the national anthem. The designer of the memorial, renowned sculptor and World War II veteran Marshall Fredericks, helped to unveil the monument. The Birmingham War Memorial consists of a bronze casting of the Great Seal of the United States set on a base of Indiana limestone. The memorial stood outside the main entrance of Seaholm High School for 46 years. In May of 1997, it was moved to the north lawn of the Birmingham City Hall, and on May 26th, another ceremony was held to rededicate the memorial with Marshall and Rosalind Fredericks in attendance. In 2010, when Cheyne Park was redesigned and expanded, the memorial was moved again to its current place of honor. The Birmingham Rotary Club will now place their memorial wreath at the monument. And now with our benediction prior to our volley and taps, Colonel Jim Miners Hagan.
Thank you, Bruce. Let's bow our heads for our benediction. Gracious God, grant that we may appreciate and treasure the freedom that is our gift and our heritage, and that we may never forget the great price at which it was purchased for all of us. We remember this Memorial Day for all of who served in the armed services of our nation. Protect them in this day of battle and in the time of peace. Grant that they may serve with honor and dignity, both to your great glory and to the credit of this nation. We ask also that you will watch over the veterans of this land, inspiring them to serve you in this country, whichever new ways that may be created. Comfort our ill and wounded comrades who languish in hospitals or homes and who are struggling with services from the Veterans Administration. Lighten their burdens, relieve their sufferings and pain, and restore to them the blessings of the health again. We also pray for those who have given their lives in this service of this country, and for those, our fellow veterans, who have served this nation with both time in battle and in time of peace. May light perpetually shine upon them. May the good work which you have begun with them be brought to perfection, and this land may prosper, and that there may be everlasting peace throughout our world. All this we ask in your name, Almighty God. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our 2023 Memorial Day service. Thank you all for attending. We hope to see you all next year.